Mr. President, a couple of hours ago, I was here on the Senate floor urging and encouraging the House to act on a compromise proposal to deal with the current fiscal issues before us that included the no Washington exemption from Obamacare language. As I said, I think that's very, very important for two reasons. One, the principle. I think the first rule of American democracy should be that Washington lives by the same rules as it imposes on America under Obamacare, under everything. And secondly, a very practical consideration. I think the quicker we do that, the quicker we start getting things right, the quicker we start understanding in a gut personal way the real challenges and burdens of Obamacare, and the quicker we start changing that. I returned just a couple hours later to congratulate the House because apparently they're moving in exactly that direction. And all indications are that they'll be going to the Rules Committee very, very soon with a package that features, that really has as its centerpiece, that no Washington exemptions from Obamacare language. Again, I think it's important for all the reasons I said. I also want to point out that assuming the House passes that, I think they're going to tonight, that no Washington exemptions language will be the only thing, the only substantial thing in that proposal that hasn't been essentially agreed to by Senate Democrats. Everything else are details, a date here, minor provisions. The only major difference between what the House is hopefully passing tonight and what's been agreed to in discussions by Senate Democrats is that no Washington exemption language. So the question will be, is this perceived crisis, is this standoff really going to continue over that, over members protecting their wallets, their special elite status, demanding that they're treated differently than other Americans under Obamacare? Is it really going to continue and not be resolved over that? I think that's what it will all be about, again, assuming, as I hope it does, the House passes this proposal tonight. Again, Mr. President, the Obamacare language, the statute itself does not allow for this special exemption or special subsidy. That is nowhere in the statute. And because of that, it was sort of an example of what Nancy Pelosi said about the Obamacare statute in general. We have to pass it to figure out what's in it. Well, it passed with language in it that said clearly members of Congress and their staff would have to go to the Obamacare exchanges for their health care, no provision for any special subsidy. And then after it passed, many folks on Capitol Hill read it to figure out what was in it. When they got to that section, they said, oh, you know what? We can't live under this. We can't stand for this. So then a fierce lobbying campaign started to get the administration to fix Obamacare, but not to fix it for America, to fix it for Congress. And that resulted in a special Obama administration rule that was conveniently issued right as Congress was leaving Washington for the August recess, right as Congress was fleeing the scene of the crime. That rule really did two things, neither of which is in the statute. And that's why it's a completely illegal rule, contrary to the statute, in my opinion. First of all, the rule said when the statute says that members of Congress and their staff have to go to the exchanges for their health care, well, we don't know who official staff is. We can't figure that out, the administrative agency said. So we're going to leave that up to each individual member of Congress. Now, that's absurd. The language is clear. All official staff are covered. The administration should have demanded on the rule that all official staff are covered and not leave it up to individual members. But under this cozy relationship, an individual member can exempt any staffer that he or she likes. In fact, in theory, that member can exempt all of his staff and say, it's up to me, they are not official staff for purposes of this provision of Obamacare. That's absurd on its face. And then the second thing this special rule for Congress only did is say, well, for those who go to the exchanges, including members, they get to take a huge taxpayer-funded subsidy with them, a subsidy available to no other American at that income level, no other American. That's not in the Obamacare statute, and that is made up out of thin air in terms of this rule. So we need to correct that situation, and we need to make sure that Washington is treated like America. First, because it's the right thing to do. It should be the first guiding principle of American democracy. Second, for the practical reason I stated. The quicker we do that on Obamacare and across the board, the quicker Washington, Congress, the president will start getting important matters, including impact of Obamacare, right.
Will the senator yield for a question?
I will in just a moment. Again, I congratulate the House for doing exactly that, And again, I would point out, assuming the House does that and passes that tonight, the only significant difference between their package and what Senate Democrats have agreed to in discussions here will be this no Washington exemption language from Obamacare. There'll be other very minor differences, a date here, language regarding how income verification is handled, very, very minor compared to this central issue. So that's what it's coming down to, and that will be what Senate action on that House proposal is about. I'll be happy to yield to my distinguished colleague from Illinois.
Since the senator from Louisiana, I'd say through the chair, has raised on the floor many times the issue of the health insurance of members of Congress, I will volunteer that I'm under the Federal Employees Health Benefit Program. Some 8 million federal employees, including members of Congress and their staff, are currently under the same health insurance program across the nation. I have the same health insurance policy as the park ranger at the Lincoln home in Springfield, Illinois. I would ask the senator from Louisiana, what is your health insurance policy?
I'm under exactly the same program, and what I'm suggesting is merely that we follow the law. The distinguished senator and many of his Democratic colleagues constantly make the point that Obamacare is the law of the land. He's right. I want to change that largely. You don't. It is the law of the land as we speak.
Senator, will you yield?
And that, let me finish. And that law of the land is crystal clear. It has a specific provision about this. And it says every member of Congress and all of their official staff can no longer stay in that plan, have to go to the Obamacare exchanges, the so-called fallback provision for the American people. And I think there was a reason for that. I think there was thinking behind that, and it's simple, that we should live under that same scenario that millions of Americans have to live under, 8 million plus, who don't want to have to go to the exchanges, who like the insurance plan they have now, who heard the president say, if you like the plan you have now, you can keep it, and who found out after the fact that that just wasn't true for them. 8 million plus who are being forced off coverage they like to go to the Obamacare exchanges.
Senator,
they don't get
further question.
They don't get any subsidy. They don't get this special treatment, and I'm suggesting we should not as well.
The senator would yield for further question through the chair.
Yes.
The senator, I hope, will concede that members of Congress and their staff are going into the insurance exchanges because of an express provision requiring that to happen in the law offered by Republican Senators Coburn and Grassley. Secondly, what we're dealing with here is a strange situation. Obamacare doesn't force anybody into the insurance exchange. It is available for those who have no health insurance or those who are on individual health insurance plans and want to buy something different. So
if I can respond and reclaim my time, I don't think that's true at all. I think Obamacare absolutely forces millions of other Americans into the exchange.
If I could.
Now, I've reclaimed my time. Now, it's not the same mechanism that it is for members of Congress. It's not an express provision, but it's forcing 8 million plus Americans into the exchanges against their will nonetheless.
If the senator
because there are many, many Americans who want to keep the coverage they have. They heard over and over from President Obama, if you like the coverage you have, you can keep it. And then they found out that for them, that was a lie. They did like the coverage they have. They are losing it against their will. And I don't think that's by accident. I think that's by design, because the Obamacare statute creates clear incentives for many, many employers to get out of the health insurance provision business and to just let their workers go to the exchanges. And so I completely disagree with the statement from the senator from Illinois when he said no other American was forced on to the exchanges. Millions of other Americans were forced on to the exchanges in a different way, but absolutely millions of Americans were forced onto the exchanges against their will.
If Senator yield further for a question through the chair, since the senator is under the Federal Employees Health Benefit Program, his monthly premiums for his health insurance and my health insurance receive an employer contribution. That's how most Americans who work get their health insurance. The employer contribution he receives and I receive about 72% of the premium. The senator from Louisiana has characterized an employer contribution as a government subsidy. I would like to ask the senator from Louisiana, is he prepared to disclose the government subsidy, as he calls it, that he has personally received for his health insurance as a member of the United States Senate?
Absolutely. That's all reclaiming my time and reclaiming the floor. That is absolutely public information. That is true. What I'm merely suggesting is that Obamacare mandates a change, and that is the law of the land, as you and your Democratic colleagues make the point many, many times, and we should live by the law of the land. And as the distinguished senator from Illinois absolutely knows, there is no provision in the Obamacare statute for that subsidy to transfer to the exchanges for members or congressional staff. No provision whatsoever. And in fact, having that happen is inconsistent with the law, because the requirements of exchange policies are different than the requirements for FEHBP policies. So it is completely inconsistent with the law for that subsidy to follow members of Congress to the exchanges. It's nowhere mentioned in the statute.
Would the senator
it's made up out of thin air under this illegal Obama administration rule with no sufficient statutory basis in the law.
Senator yield for a question?
Yes.
If the senator is stating that no one under an insurance exchange, no one can receive an employer contribution for their health insurance, he is wrong.
Reclaiming my time and reclaiming the floor, I did not state that, and I will not state that. What I did state is that there is no subsidy available to members of Congress and congressional staff under the Obamacare statute. There is no provision in the statute for that old FEHBP subsidy to magically redo itself as an exchange subsidy. There is absolutely no provision of that whatsoever. And folks, these 8 million Americans who were forced out of the plans they liked, they're not getting a subsidy. They're going to the individual exchange, and they're getting no comparable subsidy.
Senator,
now, if they're low enough income, they get a subsidy for being at a certain income level.
Senator from Louisiana's time has expired.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
And I would urge again that the Senate stand tall, stand with the American people, not stand for Washington elites. Thank you, Mr. President.